Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, the Syndic Commander, Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos, patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can support us, get access to our videos early, get access to our Discord server, get your name in the video credits. A few names just scrolled by, so check that out. We've got news today. Big news. Google has finally killed Stadia, which was something, Connor, you have been saying since basically Stadia was announced.
Yes.
You were like, all right, this thing, it was like Stadia was announced, and then the meme was Google, and it was saying, I'm about to end this man's whole career, even though they created Stadia. So yeah, you were calling that since the
second.
Yeah, and to your credit, a lot of people were like, well, a lot of people could see that coming, but it was literally the second
I was like,
Stadia.
Google Stadia, it's going away. They're killing it.
It's like
done.
You were.
They didn't finish their
100%.
sentence. They started announcing it, and I was like, no, it's gone.
But we do have other news, and we'll get into stuff. I've been playing a few games. Have you been playing a few games?
Few
Connor?
games.
Have you been
I played a little bit of one game.
A little bit of one game. Let's start with Richard's. A little bit of one game.
A little bit of one game is Bone Lab. So I've been playing Bone Lab for a little bit.
I was really hoping it was a game called A Little Bit of One Game.
Oh, yeah. I want to make that game. I won't.
Okay, well, I played a lot of Bone Lab.
Oh, that's too bad.
So
I don't have a whole ton to say, of course, because I only, like I said, I only played a bit of it. And as somebody who I only played Boneworks for a tiny bit because I do Quest on PC and then having to run the Quest, still trying to figure it out and make it run well. Whereas Bone Lab is just natively on Quest and PC VR. But playing Bone Lab for a little bit, I think it's very cool. And I don't know what to say about it because there is, of course, a story going on there.
yeah,
That's very Portal-esque. But I am curious about it. Of course, it seems like you're kind of in some sort of like laboratory institute and things are kind of going awry behind the scenes, not necessarily out front and center. So you kind of wake up to people are arguing about it right now, but the very opening scene is kind of
it is. I can
jarring for
understand
people.
It. Yeah.
I understand it. I think it's a little different situation than
we can
Super
talk
Hot.
about it. If you want to talk about what
So
happens.
the first thing they have you do in Bone Lab is basically put your head in a noose.
Yeah.
Like to
because you're part of a cult and they're
Right.
casting, they're
right.
executing you.
So yeah, as soon as you put it on, then the light reveals itself and people are like kind of forcing you to do this. So it's not like in Super Hot, in order to start the game, you have to shoot yourself in the head.
Yeah. So there's other things.
So there's a kind of like they removed that in Super Hot and they gave you like a hey, if you don't want to see this,
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a little bit of a different situation. However, I kind of screwed up at the start because they give you a very soft intro on how to play the game, where they give you like a dice roll, and the dice roll is to kind of choose your
avatar.
Your avatar,
what you look like,
yeah. And when I first played it, I either didn't see or completely missed the indication to tell you how to grab things. Like, so if I wanted to grab that monitor, like I would press the two buttons and it would kind of just like, gravity gun like to my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I completely missed that. So I did not know how to grab things. And so when you're on the noose, of course you get hung. And so there's a knife that appears and you're supposed to grab it to cut yourself. But I couldn't, so I died. And I got the achievement for that. Like there's an achievement for like dying immediately. So I was like, oh, okay. And then the next time I went through, I had a different avatar because it makes you start all over. Had a different avatar, and then I got the very quick like, oh no, you press these two to
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A knife comes out of the darkness. It's mysterious, and you grab it. And
so yeah, cutting yourself, you go through like a bunch of different. It's kind of a medieval themed area. But going through there, you get a little taste of how like the physics work, and how weight works, and then physics, whatever. But I think it was really cool, and some people are complaining about kind of like the glitchiness or the jankiness of it, but I don't really think it's too janky.
That's Boneworks.
Yeah, and I just kind of think it more or less has to do with like, if I were to put my hand on that wall and go further, of course my arm's gonna like,
Yeah.
the the development doesn't tell it to like kind of compensate for that. So if I were to correctly put my hand out as far as I am, it's going to feel perfectly fine because that's what your brain kind of tells you. But if you're trying to like do some weird like hand maneuver, it's going to be all crappy. But I was kind of itching to get more towards the more like modern area of the Bone Lab, whatever. But getting out of that opening sequence, you get into your kind of hub world where you can choose to go to like an arena, a target practice area. There's a mod area. There's a couple other places. Of course, I chose to do target practice because that's the easiest thing to guns, So playing that, I did a couple of runs through some of those target practice areas, and that was the like highlight of my gameplay. Like the gunplay in Bone Lab is so nice. It's so it feels right. That's the best way I can describe it. It just feels right.
Yeah.
Ejecting clips, slapping magazines in, cocking back the levers and stuff like that in order to use your guns is really cool. Shotguns are awesome. Assault rifles are very cool.
Shotguns were not in Bone Works, the first one. Oh, really? And they feel that may be the best VR shotgun. I'd have to play Resident Evil 4 again. I remember liking Resident Evil 4 shotgun too. But that might be the best VR shotgun ever made. Yeah. With the pump action on it. Because it works extremely well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved going through and it was very fun, but I also caught myself feeling confined to my own area, like in the outside world, not the VR world, because there are a lot. I felt like I could have gone faster through these areas. I could have done this better if I didn't have to rely on these damn thumbs, but the analog sticks. Because if I had like a huge like studio to like be able to run in, I think that it would probably operate a lot better, and I'd be more accurate to playing this game. But I'm playing stationary, so being able to kind of like move around to look around your cover spaces would work a lot better if I had the room to do that, but I don't. So I think that kind of is a hindrance. But that's not, of course, the game's fault. That's just your VR space, But sure. But beyond that, that's all I pretty much did. I am very excited to see what mods will do. We didn't talk about it much, but I kind of view Bone Lab as kind of like the VR version of Gary's mod. And it's probably going to do some crazy stuff. I mean, we've already seen some crazy stuff with like the Metal Gear mod and stuff, or Boneworks. But I do like the little collectibles. There's like little like capsule collectibles, like you'll grab both sides and you'll like pop them open and you'll get new avatars and stuff like that. And I've gone to some secret areas that seem a bit creepy, but that's all I've done in Bone Lab so far.
So it's interesting because you didn't play a whole lot of Bone Works, so that's interesting because I have played through Bone Labs. I finished it. It's not very long. I was actually pretty underwhelmed and a little disappointed for a couple different reasons. I'm writing a review about it, and I'm actually almost done with the script. So hopefully by the end of this week, it may be done. But so the premise of Bone Works was the physics of everything, right? It's that you can, so the Nullmen, which are those orange guys that look like wireframe graphics, when they walk up to you, they sort of just slap you, and it's kind of silly. But if you grab their arms, they can't do anything to you. So little tiny physics like that. If your character has momentum, so if you're running in one direction and stop, you're going to move a few feet before you come to like a complete stop. Jumping, it's like if you press the button real quick, it's a little hop. If you hold and press it, it's a big hop. So there's all kinds of stuff. I think what you talked about with like pressing your arm against the wall, you'll notice that if you put your arm against the wall and push, it pushes your character back.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't make sense because in real life, when you do that, you're not being pushed back. You're pushing the wall, right? If you push a wall, if you push it hard enough, you'll push yourself back.
Well, it also depends on how you stand to yourself. Like if you're just standing with both of your legs and you do that, you're going to go back.
But the reason it does that is because Boneworks is made so that you can climb and interact with stuff. So when you have an open hand, you're not even grabbing anything. And say you're getting to a ledge and you put your hand on the ledge without grabbing anything, there is still leverage there. So you can still lift yourself with your hand, even though you're not grabbing anything. It's the same thing with like weapons. If you have a gun and you put that gun over the ledge, you could carry yourself over the ledge with like a gun or a sword, right? Because there's physics there. So I understand that because Boneworks is the same way. Boneworks is very like, it's not janky. It's just kind of awkward and weird. But that's the point. The point is that it's a big it's experimental. I think even if you read the descriptions, it says this is an experimental shooter. So they go out of their way to make really crazy, really weird like physics and mechanics that kind of play with all that. So that's kind of the point of Boneworks and then Bone Lab, which is the sequel, which I love. I think is phenomenal. You're close, I think. So if I remember correctly, you're in a simulation, which is in Monaghan, the company that owns. Mm-hmm. So like Boneworks, so Myth OS City is where the game takes place, which is a metaverse, right? It's this giant online world made by Monaghan, which is this giant corporation, right? And it's cryptic and weird, and I'm sure if you went to the wiki, there's probably people that have pieced it together. But I think the gist of it is that it's a simulation by this company that's definitely not like Facebook at all. And the simulation has broken down and people have died. It's Jurassic Park, only it's AI that has gone out of control. And it does get surreal because there are like areas of the simulation that break out and become like metaphysics and weird stuff. So it is Portal in that sense, where it's like it becomes something more than just a lab or a simulation. It becomes like this weird hive of sentience and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it does... the beginning of Bone Lab is really good because the medieval cultists that you come from are a group of people. If you see clipboards, if you pick them up, you'll read about what's happening. And you get, I don't consider this a spoiler because you'll find this pretty quickly in the beginning of the game. But essentially what happened, or what I can piece together, is that this cult, they were doing I don't know if you've ever heard of the Stanford prison experiment. Mm-hmm. It's this really famous sociological experiment at Stanford University. The game actually references this, where one group of students played cops, the other group of students played prisoners, and they were going to do this social experiment to see what happened. And then as time went by, the students that were playing the cops got tripped on power. The students that were playing the prisoners felt like prisoners, and it became this huge problem because all of a sudden they were actually acting like abusive cops, and the prisoners were being submissive and getting abused, and it was like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. So it's this creepy thing that happened as part of a science experiment back in like the 70s. And so the idea with, and if you pick up one of the clipboards in Bone Labs, it's like, what happened here is just like what happened with the Stanford prison experiment. So these people, they were going to simulate a medieval cult. They took it too seriously. All of a sudden they became a cult, and then they sort of got abandoned by the developers and left to like continue on by themselves, which is really creepy and an interesting idea. So anyway, so you're escaping that cult, and that's a really interesting premise. I won't spoil anything, but the avatar system is the new addition to the game. There is some stuff that is freaking awesome that it does with that, because I don't know if you noticed, but when you change your avatars, your stats change too. Your speed, your strength, stuff like that. Now, with the avatars that you have unlocked, they don't change that much. Like, you'll have a little bit more health. And at the hub, you can go to like a vending machine thing, and you can change it at will. But later on, you unlock avatars that they go to extremes. So they really mess with those stats, and they really mess with your perception too. Some of them are really freaking cool. Others are kind of like, this seems kind of useless. Mm-hmm. But that's the major addition to gameplay. And you can also I think you can do custom avatars. So modders will be able to mess with that, which is exciting. So my main disappointment with Bone Lab is that Boneworks introduced all these crazy physics, and then you played through a single player story, and the puzzles that they had you doing were just like, it was just so the ambience of Myth OS is one thing, because it's this weird, creepy world that's like like it's like you're walking through Jurassic Park after the dinosaurs got out, right? Mm-hmm. So it's abandoned. You have all these like security agents that you don't really know who they are. You have these nullmen that are like creepy zombie type things. You have the mechanical head crabs that'll hop at you.
Yeah, those
I don't know if one has gotten on you, but you can actually see they get on you, and if you look at their bellies where the mouth is, there's an actual screen in there. And if you look around, it's like you're looking through a portal.
Oh.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
It's really trippy in VR.
So because it's on your face and it's looking that way, will you see like that way? Or
eventually it gets, in the first game, it got on your face and it would go over you to the point where you were inside a different room and then you would die. Because it was like, just like the head crabs in Half-Life, it was like it was settling on your head. But they're creepy because they jump at you and, and they kind of hide and stuff like that. But it had a great ambience. It had a fantastic soundtrack, and like the puzzles and the stuff that they had you do was always. Boneworks was awkward. It was janky at times, but it never stopped being fun. It was always just fun. I remember one of the puzzles, not a puzzle, but one of the activities that sort of blew me away in Boneworks was there's a giant trash wheel. You're going through Boneworks' like sewer area or something. There's a giant wheel that turns, and you have to get from one side of this gap to the other, and in the middle is this wheel. And so you're like, okay, well, how do I cross this gap? It's way too big. Well, the bars go right by the platform you're standing on. So you literally grab the bar, and then you hold it, and then like you look down as you're passing this huge chasm, and there's like there's stuff at the bottom of it, like razors that are chopping the boxes as they fall. And you just have to hold on to this thing as you're like dangling in midair. And it's so freaking awesome. And that's the kind of like no other VR games kind of do stuff like that, or did at the time. Bone Lab scales back on that. The single player story is really short. And the idea behind the avatars is awesome because you're able to do things with certain avatars that you can't do with others, just because of the way they are physically. And so that unlocks the ability to complete puzzles. So here's one small minor spoiler example. So for an example, there's one part in a level, once you've unlocked the avatars, where, the moving sidewalks at airports. So there's these moving sidewalks, and they're going really quick, and they're going toward you. And you have to get to the other side of the room. And if you get on it, your character is too slow to make it to the other side. Well, one avatar you'll unlock is a speed avatar that just moves really fast. So you switch to that avatar, which you can do at will. You unlock a device where you can switch all the different bodies, and you can just run across the thing, and you're fast enough that you can compensate for the thing sending you back, and you can make it across. Mm-hmm. So there's little tiny puzzles like that. There's just not enough of them, and and the end of the game happens really quick. And it kind of feels like a wasted opportunity. And it definitely doesn't, because all these avatars get introduced halfway through the game. And Boneworks introduced all its physics, all its funny stuff. And then you got a 10-hour adventure with all these crazy physics and puzzles and weird things and surprises. There are some definitely mind-blowing set pieces that I'm excited for you to see in Bone Lab. Stress Level Zero's creativity is on display. But it feels really limited. The levels are really awkward. Some of the levels where they introduce avatars are kind of pointless and weird and seem like a waste of time. And I kind of wish they would have just given you at the beginning and built the single player story around you being able to use all these avatars through the single player story. And I won't say too much because you're still in the middle of things, but yeah, that would be my main problem, because Boneworks, while weird, just had, and Half-Life Alyx came out a couple months after Boneworks, but the conversation was never, well, Boneworks is fun, but Alyx is just amazing. To me, it was always Alyx is really good, and Boneworks is just as good in a completely different way. Alyx obviously has its own things going for it. But I remember I was being pretentious after Alyx came out because people were like, whoa, you can turn the knobs on the radio. Whoa, you can put things in a basket. And I'm like, bro, 4 months ago in Boneworks, I was putting weapons in a trash can and tossing that trash can at Nullman. You can take a trash can in Boneworks. This is incredible. You can take a trash can. So Nullmen are like these zombie guys that stumble around.
Yeah.
You can take a trash can. Remember in Skyrim when you put a trash?
What can you do with the trash can?
Remember in Skyrim when you could put a trash can on a guy's face and he couldn't see it?
Yeah, and it was hilarious.
Check this out. You can put a trash can over a Nullman, and he'll walk at you, but just bump into you because he can't hit you because he has a trash can on top of him. It's amazing. It is hilarious. And then he'll like fall over and they'll have to like figure out how to get out of the trash can. It's the greatest thing in the world. So that's the kind of stuff you can do that in Boneworks, you can do that in Bone Lab. But anyway, so that's what makes the game really good. That's what makes their system really good.
You had guns mixed in there, so I thought guns were going to come like into the story at some point, but they didn't.
You talked about putting guns in a trash can, and then I thought that's where the story was going to be going.
Oh, sorry. I remember that trash can moment. No.
I thought you were going to throw guns in a trash can and then like throw the guns out and they'd start shooting in midair.
No, so
that'd make a game of the year.
When you pull apart those collectibles in Bone Lab, they unlock things for the free play mode, like different weapons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. In Boneworks, you had to put things in reclamation bins. So you had to find it in the level, find the reclamation bin, and then it would unlock it in the
free mode.
In the free mode. So in the tutorial level of Boneworks, there's this moment where you go into a shooting range and they have a ton of weapons. And just behind it is a reclamation bin. But they have this little puzzle thing where when you go through the door, it locks, so you can't head back to the reclamation bin. So I put a trash can underneath. It's just a door that goes up and down. I put a trash can underneath the door, so when it closed, it hit the trash can. So it was off the ground by like 5 feet. So there was a gap between the reclamation bin and the shooting range. Then I went and grabbed a bigger trash can, put all of the weapons into the trash can, and I drug the trash can, and it had like swords and guns and all kinds of stuff in it. And I shoved it underneath the door that was propped open by the other trash can, and then I dumped it into the reclamation bin. And so there's all these like, I have footage of it. There's all these like swords and stuff falling into the reclamation bin. And so all these things that I'm not supposed to unlock for another like 2 hours in later levels, I unlocked at the beginning. Which I was really proud of because it's a fun moment in a silly, VR.
Well, it's there. It's meant to be there for you to do if you can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's what the discussion I see online is that people do enjoy Bone Lab. They do think it's good. They think it's lesser than its brethren. However, they only feel that way because of the mods. This seems like a release that is solely focused on the reliance of user generation. Yeah. Rather than,
Yes. Which I am, yeah. Whether or not that's their intention, I'm somewhat disappointed in. Because I feel like now I have to wait. I unlocked the best kind of content they made. Now I have to wait for other people to make stuff. Where Boneworks, it felt like, holy shit, they blew with it. Like, this is just incredible. All the stuff you did in Boneworks. And Bone Lab, it's like, that was cool. Now I kind of have to hope random dudes on the internet make amazing stuff for all these amazing
mechanics. But random dudes on the internet make amazing stuff all the goddamn time. So
they do.
I think we're gonna see some cool stuff.
I hope so. Connor,
there are two games I want to talk about. I played a game called Crypt and the demo for the game called The Mortuary Assistant. The Mortuary Assistant, I'll start with, is a horror survival game where you play as a mortuary assistant who is being harassed by demons in the middle of a stormy night, raining outside, as you're trying to put away a cadaver.
Like, just one cadaver?
In the demo.
Oh, okay.
I don't, again, demo, not full release.
Sure, yeah.
Again, demo full release. The character reacts through the first 5-10 minutes of the game, but I don't think they have anything else finished voice line wise because the character stops reacting. So when the demons because there's a few different that you can get, when the demons start interacting with you, the lack of reaction from the character makes it feel like it's just an inconvenience of the job. So it gets really funny because you're prepping a body to be put and turned, and then you turn the head, you turn it back, and it looks at you and goes, "You're gonna die tonight." Silence. And then you just go back to work. Funny stuff like that. And then it's only about 30 minutes long, the demo. I'm gonna try to keep up with it because it seems interesting. Crypt, however, is a similar vein, it is another. It's a horror puzzle game. Well, light horror. However, there is one way to beat the game. And that's to go into the settings and enable winnable game. Otherwise, you cannot win the game.
Wait, like what? Really?
Yes. So it was a game that was made by a YouTuber to mess with his friends.
Okay.
Is this the one where a monster chases you through like a sewer or something?
It's a crypt.
It's a crypt and a monster like chases you through it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he made the game to mess with his friends, and then he decided to upload it to Steam. And, to be fair, he made the game winnable as long as you enable winning the game.
Does it like auto win or is
it just gives you the opportunity to win the game?
So what happens? Like how does?
Oh, what do you mean? What happens?
The game starts.
Yeah, the game starts. And it says,
and you run out.
Yeah, it says retrieve my artifact. All right.
Okay.
So you go in, pick up a key, unlock like this first crypt door. By the way, it's all like Game Boy Advanced graphics.
Okay.
And your only light is the torch you're carrying, so it illuminates an area around you. So very limited, information. Really, really bad graphics too, because it's like Game Boy Advance graphics. So all of it looks really jank. You go pick up an artifact, and a coffin starts shaking. As you go through, there's other keys you have to find to get out because there's 4 locks you have to unlock. Excuse me. And once you start picking up the keys, the monster known as Greg starts chasing you. The first couple keys, he's not aggressive. The first one, he just gets out of his crypt and gets out of his sarcophagus and starts wandering around. Second one, he'll approach you, but starts to run away once he enters the light. Third and fourth key is when he starts to get aggressive and will kill you. The game is pretty difficult because with the low light that you have with just a torch and the graphics, it makes it really hard to navigate one of the mazes that are in there. And it was designed to mess with a guy's friends, so finding some of these areas where the keys are is ridiculous.
Oh, there's lots of puzzles too.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm looking in.
Yeah, there's a lever puzzle that opens up bridges between platforms that you have to walk across. And there is a multitude of, obviously there's I think it's 3 by 6, so there's 6 or 18 levers, and there's only one solution for it. You have one wrong, you can't complete that puzzle. So you have to go through. Yes, you have to go through methodically, switching them back and forth. Some levers control multiple platforms, and some platforms are controlled by multiple levers. So it's the 3 light switches in a room and all control the same light. You got to figure out which one's on to turn it on, which one's off to turn it off. Yeah. And then you have to find the exit. Because the exit is randomized. So trying to find the keys, trying to keep Greg away from you, and then trying to find the exit. It's really just a shot in the dark. But it is fun. And you do get an achievement for enabling yourself to be able to win the game.
Nice.
I think the achievement's called "You're Smarter Than You Look."
Funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to read this real quick because this is on the store page. My name is Valefisk, and I am a YouTuber. I made this game as a joke. It is not designed to be fun, but to be awful to play.
Yes.
And in this, it succeeds. This version that has found its way to Steam is slightly different from the one in the original video. This one is beatable.
But only if you enable it.
Right. I mean, there's more to it to explain the rest of the game, but I think that's very interesting. It's free too.
Yeah.
It's a free game. But I see what you mean by like the it's low. It's definitely low poly.
Yeah. Like 2.
Very very specific colors, and yeah, I see what they're doing here. But it looks neat. I'm not going to play it, but it looks neat.
No, play it. Play it. It's fun.
It might be fun.
Here's the thing.
How's Greg look?
It's just a modified human that walks on all 4s.
Ah,
But it's like, again, it's low poly.
sure.
So, I mean, and by modified, I mean he just put him on all 4s and then like extended the body a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you do play it, don't start picking up the keys until you find out where they're all at.
Okay, that'd be a good
Yeah.
good call.
And
okay.
then have an escape plan.
Afterwards, all right.
even though the escape is randomized.
All right, awesome.
Yep.
You ready to hit that ad?
Yep.
Hit it. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Stadia is being shut down by Google. This was announced in a...
It's already shut down.
Well,
You can't access the store anymore.
okay.
Today.
You can get
As of
the
today.
service is shut down.
Sure.
Let's argue semantics.
I will argue semantics. Damn
Announced in a blog post, Stadia's last day is January 18th, 2023. In the post, Stadia VP and General Manager Phil Harrison said, quote, "While Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on a strong technology foundation, it hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected, so we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service. The underlying technology that powers Stadia has been proven at scale and transcends gaming. We see a clear opportunity." I added that, by the way, not Phil Harrison.
No, you probably said it that way.
It was in his head.
We see clear opportunities to apply this technology across other parts of Google, like YouTube, Google Play, and our augmented reality efforts, as well as make it available to our industry partners, which aligns with where we see the future of gaming headed. End quote. All Stadia hardware purchases made through the Google Store, as well as all game add-on purchases made through the Stadia Store, will be refunded. In a separate story by Kotaku, game devs as well as Stadia employees were apparently blindsided by the announcement. There's been a few stories about this since, but Kotaku, I think, was the first one that wrote something up about it. That's why I clarified there. Tom Vian of SFB Games said Tangle Tower, which is their next game, was due to launch on Stadia in a few days, and an article by The Verge was the first they heard about it shutting. James Simpson of Goldfire Studio told Kotaku, quote, "We'd signed a deal and had just been working toward a release on Stadia/Stadia Pro for Arctic Awakening in 2023. We just had communication with our partner manager earlier in the week going through some next steps. So there was no indication that anything was changing." End quote. What do you think, Connor?
I'm not going to say I was right because I wanted to be wrong about this. I not, Stadia being the future of gaming, but I wanted Stadia to at least somewhat succeed.
So there's been a lot of talk about what they did wrong.
All of it.
Why was it wrong?
Because they weren't prepared.
And how it could have succeeded.
A modicum of thought.
So answer those questions.
Okay, I just did.
Richard. Connor went, now it's you.
I don't know if I can answer any of those questions. I think one thing that we always talked about or harped on when the Stadia first came out and the months after was just how they marketed the whole thing. I think that they at least should have approached it a different way. And I don't even care enough to remember how they approached it in the first place.
Very much like a tech bro type thing.
Yeah. And so we can look at the way that like Game Pass like approaches things is like, hey, you pay a service, you pay this fee monthly, you get access to all these games. Mm-hmm. If you have a cell phone, guess what? You have it there too. Like you can stream it if you want. You have it there too. Like you get it on both ways. Whereas I think they kind of just, in order to play, you got to buy this controller. You got to buy the games individually for full price, but you don't own them. You can only stream them.
Some of them, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, right. Well, now you don't really own them because they're
going away now.
They're going away now.
Sure.
So instead of just kind of like how I always felt they should have been, it was just, you don't need to buy anything. Your web browser is all you need. Just buy the game and then it'll work. Well, you hope it'll work with your internet connection. But I think marketing was a big reason why that it failed. Also, just the assumption that you were going to go up to a already like set group of people, gamers, and tell them this is how it's going to be from now on. Well, when that's not necessarily, no one's ready for this. No one's ready for this.
Yeah, that probably annoyed me the most was the idea that cloud streaming is the future. because I just don't think that's true right now. Google had to argue. One, Google had to convince people that they knew what to do with gaming that wasn't making microtransactions off of a mobile store, right? Because outside of that, Google doesn't know anything about video games. And then they have to convince people that streaming is gonna be fine and is gonna work. So when they rolled out Stadia, part of the corporate line was, remember, I forget who it was that said it, but it was like, hey, all my music is streaming now. As if those things are the same, as if streaming music and streaming video games are at all in the same sport, let alone in the same ballpark. So the company line was, we have to convince people that streaming is not only a viable alternative to purchasing copies, downloading copies, but also an inevitability, right? Is the Thanos of technology. Which I just don't think it was at the time. And I think a lot of people's skepticism just stopped there because of a billion different reasons. Internet connectivity, outages, input lag, all that kind of stuff, all the variability that can go into that. And I think that bothered a lot of people. And then there were a bunch of little tiny things that bothered me. I hated that you had to pre-order to get your name first. I hated that they put that out there.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's true. Like, if you're first on a service, yes, of course, that means you're going to, the first dude to sign up for Xbox Live, he had this pick of all the names. But I don't know. It just felt tired that, they were putting out there, get it now, because you get the first names.
Even that, nowadays, that's not even important either.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Nowadays, that's not even important. Like, your name,
yeah, sure.
Your moniker it's important to an extent, but people don't pay for that.
I just didn't like, it was just something that annoyed me. It was FOMO, it was get now, it was pre-order culture, and it was just a lot of stuff that I didn't like. And I think a lot of people didn't like. So it felt bad from the start. Google had to fight an uphill battle that I think they themselves weren't really convinced was correct, right? And they ended up being evidence to I think what a lot of people worried about was, okay, if they make a Witcher, Google's Witcher, whatever it is, and it's exclusive on Stadia, like, can this happen? And it would have, because it's gone now. And so you have developers trying to figure out what to do with their games. You have people trying to figure out what to do with their saves that only played on Stadia. And this is the fear. And I want to piggyback this into the next thing, which is, and I don't know if anyone has said this, but I'm sure somebody has. And if you guys saw it somewhere, please tell me. Because I am responding to a straw man at the moment, but I'm fairly certain this straw man exists. Because every time I heard about a developer tweeting, what are we supposed to do with our game? And blah, blah, blah. There was just that gamer TM dude who I just pictured, replying saying, you shouldn't have put your game on Stadia. That's your fault. Something like that, right? I'm sure that exists.
Oh, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I haven't seen it, but
okay.
Yeah, so I agree. I haven't seen it.
Maybe it doesn't exist.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
No, it does.
I think it's fair to presume that it exists based solely off of the internet.
Not exactly those words. It probably would have been more like, maybe you shouldn't have put it on a service that was bound to fail.
Well, I mean, someone probably would have been as blunt, but it would probably be more sarcastic, more snarky.
Sure. Okay. So I want to speak out against that person for a second, because I think we should remember a few things. One, developing games sucks. So if you can get deals and put your games out there, do it.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to worry if a service that is being backed by one of the largest companies in the world, one of the most powerful, one of the most lucrative companies in the world, is just going to kill their gaming arm out of nowhere, which they did. Google has the resources to do this differently. I don't know their internals, and I don't give a shit. Google has the resources to do this differently, to close Stadia in a different way that wasn't all of a sudden on a Monday or Friday, whenever it was. By the way, guys, we're closing shop in 6 months. Fire sale. They have the resources to handle this differently, and Google didn't do it because they're a giant corporation and they don't give a shit about gaming. It doesn't matter what Phil Harrison says. So he's like the 6th best Phil in gaming, and the first 2 are Phil Spencer. So
Xbox.
Thank you. So
It's Phil
Nailed it.
Spencer with a blazer, and then second is Phil Spencer without a blazer.
Right, yeah.
Of course. No. So if you are arguing that like that people should be more selective with where they put their games, or that it's somehow a developer's fault that they didn't read the tea leaves, I'm sorry. You're just being an asshole, because put yourself in their shoes. You're trying to get your game out there. You're signing a deal with Google.
Yeah.
Right? Not like some tiny little indie publisher that, that has a hamster wheel for a CPU or something like that. We're talking about Google. So I just wanted to argue against that point, because I'm sure because there's a lot of schadenfreude over this, right? Because a lot of people didn't like this from the beginning, so they're glad it's shutting down. But that shouldn't extend to the developers, because the developers got just as screwed as everybody that's losing their saves right now.
Arguably more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe arguably more.
And that's the worst part about all of it is, of course, the sudden collapse of everything with people not knowing. As a developer, you get a good deal from Google, you would take it, like, especially if you're a small developer. Same with all the developers who take
and it may be the only deal you get.
Right. Same with all the developer deals you get with Game Pass. Why wouldn't you take that if you were spending your blood, sweat, and tears making this thing? But man, I do think it's admirable that Google is like, we're refunding everybody.
Yeah.
It's I feel the I don't want to just say the least they can do, because it's you bought it into it, you kind of should expect something, but whatever. But getting back your money from purchasing something that failed, that's pretty good. But it would have been like, I feel like Google probably could have spun this. They could have like turned, I don't know, Stadia into a publishing label, like. And maybe take all of the games that were on Stadia exclusively, like Guilt, which is now coming to all consoles from Tango Gameworks, but Stadia publishing or Google publishing or something for just those smaller games. I mean, because that's a good starting point to get into the gaming industry, rather than trying to just change the landscape in one fell swoop. You're not playing. SimCity here. You're not just like, you can't just do it all at once. You can't force people to change on a whim, considering how the industry has been in the last like 20, 30 years. But so now all these developers are left in the dust. But hey, Microsoft's probably sitting there in the corner like, and we'll make deals with these guys.
Sure. And I think xCloud is how you should do things. I don't deny that game streaming is a part of the future, but slow your roll if it is the future, because I just don't think that if I'm watching a Star Trek episode from 1989 and the quality dips for 5 minutes, that's annoying. I can live with it. If I'm playing Thor Ragnarok and 15 hours in I get to a cutscene and the quality dips for 5 minutes, I'm distraught.
Yeah,
because Thor Ragnarok, or whatever, God of War Ragnarok. I always say Thor. I don't know. Anyway, I'm distraught because it's like, well, there goes that cutscene, and now I just the only way I saw it was poor quality. You were going to say something.
I want to cut in and talk about the notion of the future of gaming, because I feel like this ties into one of the earliest follies that came with Stadia, which was their target audience. Because their target audience wasn't gamers. It wasn't people who play video games. It was people that are into Web3. Because
really? You think so?
if you look at the terminology, if you look at how things are being presented, it follows every major trend for Web3 like proponents. Saying it's the next generation, it's the future. Like, yes, those are very common phrases, but specifically when it comes to internet culture, gaming, stuff like that, those phrases are used heavily in Web3 presentations or the next generation, the internet, stuff like that. Their target audience should have been just people into Web3. They shouldn't have tried to branch out to, reach to gamers. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Google was trying to conduct a Ponzi scheme. They probably weren't. It was probably an accident, But that's, again, common threads all right there between NFTs, between cryptocurrencies, all these next-gen Web3 things, all of them all connected in not cryptos and NFTs, but all the threads, all the buzzwords, everything that you would expect to find in a presentation for anything Web3 was with Stadia.
Okay.
And again, the presentations, what they were trying to push out, it appeals to like the crypto bro side of...
That's what you said when we started talking about this, so I can kind of see what you're saying, definitely.
Mm-hmm. It appeals to the crypto bro side of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't like it.
And developers got caught crossfire.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I wanted to say. It goes back to the Schadenfreude thing. So a long time ago, I remember browsing the Stadia subreddit, and do you guys know that meme of like there's like two stick figures on a couch and they're playing a game, and there's another stick figure behind them, and like the meme format goes, the stick figure behind them keeps saying why what they're doing is like bad,
Yeah, complaining about
and
it.
then after a few panels it says stop having fun, right? While the people so I remember somebody did that, and it was about Stadia, and it was like, it's not true 1080p, it's not this, and then stop having fun, right? But the problem, it was not that the reason that people didn't like Stadia was because it was this lie that streaming was the future, which it is not true, and the consequences of that when it comes to preservation, when it comes to the quality of games, stuff like that, are wide-ranging. So that's not even the future we should want. If anything, Xbox Game Pass is much more in line. And even then, there's problems with preservation and stuff like that. But the problem was not just people just don't like Stadia because it's Google or because it's a service they're unfamiliar with, but also there are other factors to consider when you have a fully streaming game service that I think is worrying. And yeah, I am curious if anything is going to disappear forever from Stadia, like not in someone's game files, but like, I don't know, I don't know if any games are going to disappear forever because they were on Stadia only or something, but just something weird. I don't know, like if there's an update to a game that went out and only went out on Stadia that we don't know about or something like that.
Yeah,
something odd
yeah,
like that that's going to disappear forever. And that's, grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal. But again, it's just the idea that it's gone now because one corporation said, we're done with this. And they ripped the cord out and it's gone, and it's like, that's not the future you should want. Not when it comes to games, not when it comes to anything.
There's so much I want to talk about.
We can reconvene next week. Stadia, RIP Stadia Part 2.
Maybe. I just want to just tie into something you were just talking about, and that's streaming being the future of X media.
Yeah.
Streaming has not been good for any artist.
Yeah.
Going like since its inception. Speaking as a musician, streaming is the worst thing you can do for a musician, especially indie artists. Streaming their music does nothing. They don't. Yeah, you may stream their songs 40 times a week. Listen to it on your commute to and from work every day. It's nothing. The amount of streams you have to put in to make it worthwhile for an indie artist. And I'm not saying don't listen to indie music. Of course, listen to local bands, support local art, listen to small bands. But the amount of work you have to do to make it worthwhile for indie artists has checks built in to prevent indie artists from employing tactics to make themselves successful. Because Spotify, after a while, will stop counting streams. If it's from the same IP, if it's the same group of songs being played over and over, it will stop counting streams. So that indicates that streaming will not be good for ever be good for music, because there's no way to make it viable for indie artists. Streaming games, it gets even dicier because indie games are already just labors of love. They're just passion projects most of the time. Most of the time, they'll never be profitable. The ones that do, great, celebrate them. And then to make them streaming only cuts into what little profits they can make, because, well, They didn't buy the game. They're just streaming it. And the company that is doing the streaming, providing the service, because there's no set in stone standard for streaming yet, can make out like a bandit with whatever profits that could come in for the company. So streaming needs to not be a future for art, because then you just get the same stuff over, because that's what makes money, and that's all these companies care about.
Well said. We'll put Richard.
Oh, right. I have a story.
Tell us what's going on at Nintendo.
Mackenzie Clifton, who filed an NLRB complaint against Nintendo back in April, has come public and spoke with Axios. For the quick background, the original complaint said that Aston Carter, the third-party contracting firm, took, quote, coercive actions against the workers and interfered with their legally protected right to organize. Clifton says that during a Q&A session with the Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser, she asked, quote, what does Nintendo of America think about the unionization trend in QA in the games industry as of late, end quote. Clifton's question wasn't answered, but later a supervisor from Aston Carter called her and told her the question was a, quote, downer question, and to direct those questions towards Aston Carter in the future and not Nintendo. Less than a month later, she was fired. Nintendo denies that unions had anything to do with Clifton's firing, saying they were actually let go for publicly disclosing private information. Clifton says the tweet Nintendo fired them for, in which they said, quote, in today's build, someone somewhere must have deleted every other texture in the game because everything is now red, just like pure red. It's very silly, end quote. Clifton says that's a misdirection.
Yeah, so she says that Nintendo saying that tweet is the reason that they fired her is a misdirection. And I don't know how strict Nintendo is with people tweeting things out.
Wow.
I'm sure they're very strict.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if that constitutes somebody getting fired or whatever. But this definitely doesn't make Nintendo look any better.
No.
This situation has just kept getting worse and worse for Nintendo and for Aston Carter. Both companies that just look incredibly skeevy and probably did in the past, and now more so now. I don't understand these companies, these giant corporations. Like, okay, let's talk about fucking Epic. Epic deals with Tencent. There are concentration camps in China, right? So Epic has to navigate doing business with a communist dictatorship that puts people in camps and is so sensitive to images of their president, they will try and just tear any image away from any service that compares him to Winnie the Pooh, right? So this is a totalitarian, oppressive government. They will navigate that because of that money. But then these corporations, you ask them about unionization, and it's like you're asking about something super personal that's just super offensive, and how dare could you ask that? And that really bothers me. It bothers me that these corporations will take on these gigantic challenges of navigating geopolitical minefields so that they can make a profit off of markets in Asia and in the Middle East and other places. And not to say the United States is perfect, of course not, but and then when you ask them about labor unions, it's like you somehow create some kind of offense. And that bothers me. This person has come out public. So this is different now, because with a lot of game stories, people don't come out public because you're afraid of retaliation. But this time, this person apparently isn't afraid of retaliation. So the ball is in, well, I guess Nintendo responded by just saying it had nothing to do with what they asked, and it was all about the tweet. But I still think, I feel like if you're Nintendo, maybe you come out and say something about unionization. If it really wasn't about unionization, if it really was about this tweet, maybe you can come out and say, oh no, we're fine with our employees unionizing. But this was really about the tweet. If you said that, then what's the big deal? Then maybe Clifton, it really was the tweet. if you guys respect your employees' rights to unionization. But clearly that's not really the case. And Aston Carter is just a collaborator in all this. A third-party, gutless, yellow contracting firm whose executives, I'm sure, stand for nothing, have no beliefs, and have no principles. That may be harsh because I have no idea who they are, but this kind of shit is ridiculous, especially in a day and age when we're seeing across the industry stories about abuse and sexual harassment and crunch and employees finally trying to say, fuck this, we have to fix the industry because the industry won't do it for us. And Nintendo's answer is, it's the tweets. It's the tweets. It's annoying. Go ahead, Richard.
They wouldn't make that tweet because then they would get questions from publications about unionization. Then they'd have to deal with that. Because then it would be like, well, why don't you unionize? And then Nintendo would have to answer that. So that is their best way. Because unfortunately, I don't know. I can't speak on Washington because that's where they are. But two things. Nintendo just had, it was a private information that they tweeted out. And so, that's why they're fired. And that's all they can say because you can't just be, well, what private information? Well, it's private.
Sure.
So that's it. Yeah. Very, very close-ended, And then the second thing is, unfortunately, the greater gaming community doesn't care about I don't feel cares about Nintendo in the way that they care about like Activision and all those other like Activision, Ubisoft, Blizzard, blah 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 blah. I'm going to try to put this in words. It's the fan base for Nintendo is very specific. So it's kind of one of those they can do no wrong type situations.
Sure. Yeah.
So Nintendo gives people the best games ever made, always. Even if they're not good, fans will be like, this is great, But the greater public is with like Sony and like Xbox and them.
I know what you're saying.
So
you're correct.
So the flack isn't going to go to Nintendo like ever. Even the flack that you'll see for like the regurgitation of Pokemon games or Zelda games or Mario games, like it doesn't even reach the amount of like widespread conversation as something like, Activision and Activision-Blizzard's dealings in the last couple of years. So I think that's another part of why this story has gained no traction whatsoever. Because I saw this come up last week, and I've not seen a single person talk about it. Whereas, of course, we'll keep mentioning it. Activision, Blizzard, or Ubisoft does something. Just
sure, yeah.
Nintendo has the best lawyers. They're the ones who won the case against Universal for King Kong. In order to keep Donkey Kong, like they have good lawyers. So I don't.
The whole fan base, Nintendo fan base thing is something that I don't. Maybe it's just a childhood thing. Maybe it's because a bunch of people grew up playing.
It's the it's the Disneyland thing. It's Disneyland.
It's the Disneyland thing.
Disneyland adults, there's Disneyland adults.
Sure.
That's Nintendo. They have fucking Nintendo adults.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And
they will do anything for them. They will spend the money.
I'll never understand that. I'm fine with people being passionate about something.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like, I'm not bemoaning that. I'll never understand their passion for something rising to the point of like abject ignorance.
I did know somebody like that. Like, I mean, for a little bit, I don't converse with them, but they like literally would not play anything if it wasn't on a Nintendo console. They wouldn't like talk about anything else unless it came from Nintendo or was on a Nintendo console. And it was just kind of like,
I guess I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I understand.
That person encountered this and said, "Sounds like to me, Mackenzie was a bad employee." It's like, whoa, okay, hold on. Like then
it was to a fault. Like, okay, yeah, to an extreme or whatever. But anyways,
okay,
we've gotten far off what the point I was trying to make was.
No. I think you're correct. I think Nintendo, because they live in their own universe, they get away with things that other companies wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And it could also be that Nintendo is half of it's Japanese. Well, not half, but like technically.
Yeah.
Maybe not technically half, but you can sort of imagine that like the other larger half doesn't make sense, of Nintendo is like a Japanese company.
Nintendo of America is just an American branch of a Japanese company. So
Exactly.
it's all Japanese. Yeah.
That's probably a better way to put it. Whereas these other companies, Ubisoft is global, but they're really popular in the United States, and they have a more casual audience. You could kind of argue that with Nintendo, maybe, but again, I think that may be like on a different level or something. No, I think you're correct, and I think that stops maybe some discussion from happening. But yeah,
obviously, we don't want it to. Obviously, I want to see
and
Nintendo.
Again, like I think we should. This is somebody coming out publicly, which you can count on one, maybe two hands, the amount of time someone has come out publicly.
Yeah, and even
talked bad about the games industry.
Yeah, and even then, the one or two times that they've come out specifically against Nintendo, it's always been the like, you guys don't understand, like their shit is like the NDAs they have to sign and whatnot are like airtight.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Nintendo is just as dogmatic and cutthroat and evil as all the other companies. It's just their mascot is a silly little dude with a mustache and not a guy with a knife on his wrist or something like that. Connor.
Yes.
More union stuff.
Yeah, the U.S. Labor Board finds Activision-Blizzard withheld raises to retaliate against unions. This was first reported by the Washington Post. Recap: back in June, a complaint filed to the National Labor Board said Activision-Blizzard discriminated and retaliated against QA testers at Raven Software for their union activity. This included layoffs, reorganizing the studio, and withholding benefits. This is a quote straight from the Washington Post. Quote, the National Labor Board has investigated and found the video game titan Activision-Blizzard withheld raises from quality assurance testers at its subsidiary, Raven Software, and that it attributed the withholding to testers' quote, union activity, end quote.
So this is something we all guessed.
Yeah.
That we all kind of, it'd be a shame if you made a union and what happened to that good raise, We all kind of assumed that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And this is this is putting it officially in writing. So, discussion. Everybody all at once. 1, 2, 3. Fuck Activision Blizzard. There we go. Thank you. I was 100% sure we weren't going to get that off, but we got it off. Team. But yeah, no, I think it was transparent. And legally speaking, not lawyers, but I don't know if Activision Blizzard is technically doing anything illegal, but they're definitely doing things that are, and now this is a legal term, shitty. So, they're definitely doing that. So yeah, screw them. But this was an update that came out today, and I just wanted to post it because I'm rooting for Raven Software. I think we all are.
Yeah, I am.
No, go Activision Blizzard.
Bobby Cutts,
wait,
my hero.
You just said
no. I want to.
Have you ever seen Moneyball?
No, the Brad Pitt, Clint Eastwood film.
Kotick's in that, right?
Yeah.
At the very beginning, and it just I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie, but it's just like I don't know. Now of everything we know about that now, it just takes me out of it instantly because I imagine like Brad Pitt walks into his office and Kotick's like harassing, but has to stop for like a split second. It's like it's super awkward, and there's like no way Kotick could run a baseball team. He can't run Call of Duty. Like he couldn't run a baseball team. Are you kidding me? It's like Kotick, it's the top of the first. What do you want us to do? Go for it on fourth down. No, that's football, Kotick. That's football.
Shoot a three from way downtown.
No, Kotick, that's basketball. You got it wrong.
Switch to super soft tires. Kotick, that's Formula One.
What other weird references can we make?
I was trying to think something cricket related.
Me too. I've been trying to
shoot the boot through the booty, whatever they say. Cricket. No, that's Australia, Bobby. That's Australia. Do you have tidbits?
I do have tidbits. Sorry, just real quick about the Activision Blizzard thing, man. What I think it was like earlier this year, like the just do it, Microsoft. Like when Microsoft was like, yeah, we're buying Activision Blizzard, of course everybody's like, whoa, is this cool? Like, should they be doing this? I don't give a shit. Just do it already. Like Get rid of
Activision-Blizzard.
Yeah, get rid of Activision
Gut the
Blizzard.
management.
No, you're right.
When you said just do it, I pictured Sidious sitting on the throne, and Anakin is Phil Spencer, and Dooku is Bobby
Xbox.
Kotick, and it's just do it, and he just decapitates. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. And then like Kotick dies, and Phil Spencer's like, "That's not the Xbox way."
Xbox. I was more thinking of I Think You Should Leave. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Where's the coffin flop? It's like, I'm done. Do what you want. Pull the plug. I'll kill you. Oh man, I got small tidbits. We can do this.
All right, tidbits. Let's do it. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
This is going to be very short. I only got 2 of them, and there's not much to say. But hey, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is never coming out, guys.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, that's fine. What
Is this the story about it breaking a record?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Did we do that last week?
No.
All right. So, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is now the longest running game without any like updates that's in development time, whatever. Anyway, Duke Nukem Forever went 5,156 days from its announcement in 1997 to its release in 2011, and it has now been 5,234 days since the first Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer was released.
Whoa. It's been more than 10 years since that? Hold on, back up. I got this wrong. I'm completely confused.
Maybe.
Say one more time. I'm sorry.
Maybe I got the information confused. Maybe I got the numbers confused. Hold on.
I goofed up.
Because that did seem like a lot.
Because, okay, Duke Nukem was 97
Yeah.
to 2011. And when was that Ubisoft presentation? That was like 2013? No, that was when we were starting the podcast, right?
Yeah. Wait. Sorry.
So how do you calculate? This is great. Can I just talk sports for?
Please go ahead, Aaron Judge, whatever.
Hey, okay. First of all, you honor that
62 runs or whatever.
American League record.
Hey, I got a job to do here. Okay, come on.
No, Beyond Good and Evil 2. It's interesting because when it was first released, or not released, when it was first announced, it was the Vivendi thing. So it had to have been 2017 or something. So it wasn't that long ago, like 2016, around there. And the Vivendi thing was the hostile takeover. So you have this other company, Ubisoft's looking to fight it off, and Ubisoft is in a completely different place then because they had so much more goodwill back then. Whatever that means, but they did, right? You smash cut to now, and all of a sudden Ubisoft looks like they're trying to sell.
So, officially discussing Beyond Good and Evil back in 2008 when a CGI trailer for the project was released.
Oh, okay. So that's where they're starting the date.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Okay. I did not know that. So that's when they're considering the official start.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. I'm sorry, Richard.
No, I started it because I've never seen that trailer.
Neither have I. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, me neither. Anyways.
Okay. So it's now officially the longest.
Well, it's been the longest for a while. Just people didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Because Duke Nukem was 5,156, and as of September 28th, Beyond Good and Evil 2 was 5,234.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I've always perceived, and I'm incorrect, I guess, but I mean, I've always perceived Beyond Good and Evil 2 starting with that announcement
that
trailer.
2013 trailer. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Or whenever it came out.
Well, there was
There was a
CGI trailer released for it back in 2008, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. No idea.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that trailer.
What happens in it?
Stuff.
It's there's a butterfly flying and then it lands on the pig's nose. And then he like sneezes or like breathes it in or something. And Jade is sitting next to him with an umbrella. I'm pretty certain I remember that trailer because it was people freaked out. I remember it.
Oh, okay.
Anyways.
In any case, what's the next tidbit?
Nintendo Pictures has officially been launched. Nintendo Pictures is a new subsidiary of Nintendo that will focus on visual content utilizing Nintendo IPs. Of course, we talked about this a couple months ago. Dynamo Pictures, which was purchased by Nintendo, this is now what has been turned into Nintendo Pictures. So I don't know if we'll be getting like TV shows or shorts or stuff like that involving
Do you think Nintendo would be interested in that? Because video game movies have always been bad.
There's this little movie coming out next year called the Super Mario Bros.
I mean,
movie,
there's that. But think about the video game like TV shows.
Yeah.
The Witcher isn't based on the game, but it certainly is closely related to the game. You had The Witcher. You had Castlevania. You have the Cyberpunk. You have
Dragon's Dogma, Dragon Age, Mass Effect.
You had damn it, League of Legends. Was it a League of Legends anime?
Yeah, Arcane. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of really popular, and I don't know how good they are, but I know that people watch them.
Arcane was good.
Arcane is apparently one of the best shows.
Castlevania was excellent. Yeah. Castlevania was good. Very, very good.
So I think it's more like it's less. It's going to be a video game tie-in. It's more. It's going to be, adjacent to this video game, but it's its own independent thing that we're just making with the assets from this video game. We kind of want to tell our own story, but we kind of want to please the fans a little bit, so we're going to double dip.
Yeah, sure. I wonder if Nintendo...
That's how you do it.
I guess if Nintendo controls everything, maybe they'd be interested in it.
That first movie, the Mario's Bro movies, Super Mario Bros. Movie in the 90s. Yeah. That... So I secretly like that movie, but
not secret anymore.
It's not.
I'll leave it out.
No, that's okay.
Whoa, Richard.
But there's a supposed and they interviewed everyone who was around that time, but Bill White, when he spoke to like Miyamoto, it was just like Miyamoto gave like, yeah, it's fine, but now Miyamoto is like seriously hands-on with the new one. So it's like, he's not. They are extremely protective of their IP, so I don't think they're going to do anything that they're not going to let anyone touch it. They're going to all do it in-house probably. But there's a lot of stuff. This could be the alternative, although we don't want it. We want more games based off Nintendo IPs. Nintendo refuses to make those IPs, but maybe they'll make a TV show out of it. Maybe they'll make, little shorts involving some of these characters that people really want to see again. But
I think that could be a cool idea.
I think it'd be a cool idea, but it's not what people want.
You don't think so?
Well, sorry. Sure. I mean, people will be happy about it, but people want another Kid Icarus game. People want another F-Zero game. People want another, we're getting a Pikmin game, so don't get me started on that one.
Okay.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead. You have a tidbit?
Yes, I have a tidbit.
Is this okay, Richard?
I don't care.
You guys want to fight?
No.
I think you guys want to fight right now.
fight with our tongues.
I definitely don't want that. What's your tidbit?
So I stumbled upon this on Steam a couple days ago, and all I'm seeing is announcements for 9 hours ago, so maybe it wasn't supposed to be on Steam yet. But Dead Space is getting a remake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know that.
Oh, have we?
Yeah. The gameplay trailer came out today.
Yeah. Okay, the gameplay trailer. Okay. That's what I've
You probably weren't here for that podcast.
Probably not.
There was they've released an announcement trailer.
Okay.
A couple months ago. Yeah.
Probably while I was gone.
Yeah, you work nights, so it's like you perceive the universe.
Time is an illusion.
Yeah, time is like if you go to Connor's work, it's straight Rustin Cole from True Detective. He's cutting up bottles and he's like, "Listen here, boys, time is a flat
So I'm just gonna
circle."
cut this part out of the podcast.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.